But before we get into having a look at how to create those, I just want to show you a couple of choice boards that I have put together just to show you how easy it is to create choice boards. As I mentioned, these are really simple choice boards. These are not complicated. They haven't got excessive things like videos and audio clips and things embedded in them. They are just instruction-based choice boards, essentially, for our students to choose what they'd like to do. A couple of them here have suggested tools or places that students could go to access parts of this, but I just want to show you how easy it is to create these. This probably took me less than 30 minutes to create these examples, and I'll show you why it was really quick for me to create these when we create some together soon. So let's have a look at our first example. My first example here is a really simple choice board that I have created for the novel Trash. Now, the reason why I created this was not for a self-indulged interest here, but it was just something that came to mind first when I was creating these. One of my classes at the moment is currently reading this particular novel, Trash. So I thought this is a great way for me to show how I could potentially use a choice board in my classroom with my students. I don't know if I will use this, I'm going to be honest. My context, time, all those kind of things we have to do as teachers there. But this is definitely an option that I might use at the end of my particular unit to wrap up and check my students' understanding of this particular text. So with this particular choice board here, I have a 3x3 grid. I've only used 8 of the cells, 8 of them here. I've got a nice heading in the middle so that my students know what this particular choice board relates to. And then my activities are very clearly outlined. Okay, they know that one of them is a maths challenge. They know one of them requires some creativity with a graphic novel or a comic. And then we've got a quick instruction for our students or for my students to have a look at and see what they need to do for that particular activity. What then I have included is some digital tools that my students might like to use to complete these particular activities. And you'll notice for some of them, such as this one here for the plot timeline, what I would do is I would actually create a template and I would pop that into, say, a Google slide. And then I would create an assignment on Google Classroom so that my students would head to Google Classroom so that they would be able to actually complete that particular activity using that template, which was easily accessible on Google Classroom. So what I could have done here, and I just didn't have the time, is I could have popped in some links so that my students were taken straight to Canva, straight to Google Slides, Google Vids, etc. But you can see that we have a variety of different topics there. Okay, we've got some kind of creative ones. We've got a timeline there. We've got some to check our students' understanding of the novels. But we've got 8 very engaging activities that my students could attempt basically over a couple of lessons, and they could do that at their own leisure. So there's one example of a very specific choice board that I created for the novel Trash. Okay, here's a couple more choice boards that I have put together, and you can see that the choice board on the the left-hand side here, I've completely forgot my left and right sides there. This one here, the fast finishes. So I was talking about how your choice boards don't have to relate specifically to something like the novel Trash and the novel study that I was completing with Year 8. All right, this particular choice board here I created because I thought this would be a really great one to pop up on a Google Classroom so that if I ever had students that were very efficient and completed their work and learning activities really quickly, there was something for them to go and work on after they had finished that. What I actually did was I got ChatGPT to help me out with this one, and I asked it for a variety of different fast finisher activities, including some literacy and numeracy activities. So you can see here that we've obviously got word wonder, quick writes, okay, we've got some maths problems, and then I asked it to create a variety of activities that I could include in my choice board. I think asked it to create about 15 to 20 activities, and then I just went through and selected the ones that I liked the most. And you can see here that I have just popped in where or how the students might like to actually complete these particular activities. So you could pop that up into Google Classroom and your students could access that if they had finished all of their learning activities really quickly. So a nice, simple, fast finisher choice board that you could use with your students. This particular example over here on the right, the maths menu, pick your problem. So this particular time, we've got a whole heap of maths related activities, all right, that I believe, if I go back to my memory, which is not necessarily the best, I think these are for maybe a year 5 or 6 class. So you've got some maths activities here. We've got a little instruction here that says complete the following scenarios. Make sure you at least complete one challenge activity if you are ready to stretch your brain. So you will see here that these 5 activities at the top state all students. So these 5 activities I expect all students in my class to attempt. And then down the bottom, we have some extension activities. So at a minimum, my students are going to complete 5 of the 8 of these activities. So if I have a student that is a little bit lower, again, I might differentiate that even more and I might just get them to complete 2 or 3 of these activities. But this is the great thing about a choice board. It is so simple to adjust on the fly and to cater for your students and their particular needs. If I had a really high achieving student, they might complete all 8 of these particular activities. I might get them to complete all 5 of the all students and then all 3 of the extension challenges. And you can see that I've just asked the students to either use a Google Doc, I might have that set up in Google Classroom, or just their workbook to show their particular working out for these activities. A really great activity, a really great choice board to use as a starter for a lesson. Maybe you've got some time. See how choice boards are so flexible and you can use them for almost any purpose or reason. These first 3 choice boards here have all been created using Canva, and I'm going to show you those 3 choice boards in Canva. So these 3 choice boards here have all been created using Canva. This choice board here, I'm not sure why it turned out as blurry as it did, but that doesn't matter because that's not the whole point here. But just here, we have another choice board. Now, this choice board was created in Google Slides. Google Slides is absolutely perfect if you want to create a choice board. If you don't have access to Canva, but you have access to Google Slides, that is perfect. You could even use Microsoft PowerPoint if you're not a Google school. There are so many ways that you can create these. If you want to use Word, you could use Word. So this particular choice board here is obviously for Year 10 mathematics, and we have a variety of tasks here that are actually real life kind of scenarios that our Year 10 students might be required to think about, or things that might actually come up in their future. And what I was thinking with this particular choice board is this particular choice board would be great for that end of term, that week before you break up for your school holidays, or something like this for maybe the end of the school year. The kids are starting to go, do you know what, we're almost at summer, and they are switching off. I can see using a choice board like this to be a really great way to engage your students with meaningful activities where they have choice, but also implementing and using text and ideas and topics that you have looked at throughout the school year. So you can see here that we have 8 particular scenarios. I'm actually asking my students to complete all of these. So as I mentioned, I'd probably complete this over a week or 2. And you can see here that I would actually embed and include a link to a Google Doc where my students would complete these particular activities and show their working out and explain their thinking. So I would probably have that set up on maybe Google Classroom, all right, so that students can jump in and use that for this particular activity. So this one is obviously created, as I mentioned, in Google Slides. So I have changed my background color to make it a little bit more engaging and poppy. I've changed the color for my heading and instructions in the middle so that it clearly stands out and my students know exactly what they are going to be required to do. So that is an example of 4 different choice boards that you can use in the classroom.